have access to a spirit, a strength that enlarges and empowers you. Even better, you don't need to wait for the next big movement. You can heal the world. It's time for governance by grace. Welcome to Gracearchy with Jim Babka. Welcome to Gracearchy, brought to you by the Zero Aggression Project. We're recording this just hours after the press conference announcing the arrest of a suspect in Charlie Kirk's murder. The story will keep developing rapidly, so we're not here to discuss the case. That's not really a Gracearchy role. We have very little to say about that, except that we want to offer our condolences both to Charlie Kirk's family and to the family of the shooter, who, as far as we know, was instrumental in turning him in. And that's a tough thing, Jim. Can you imagine as a parent having a kid that goes so far off the rails that you have to turn him in? So our condolences to everyone who's impacted by this. This is a tragedy of just unspeakable nature.
Yeah.
And we want to unpack that here.
Yeah, definitely. He did have a family, and this is a human being, and it is appropriate. It is right, objectively, to offer condolences
Yes.
here. You brought up the father. Yes, I mean the father of the suspect apparently is the one that turned him in. Don't know how that's going to transpire or whether that's even true right now, but that's what we understand in the early hours. So I don't want to, we're not releasing this the same day that we record it. Things are subject to change. But yes, I couldn't imagine having to be in those positions. And I think looking at the fundamental humanity of this will be a theme that runs through the entire discussion that we're going to have today.
Absolutely, yes.
I also want to add, because it's very important that this be set up front as a caveat, that words don't justify violence and disagreement doesn't justify violence. So a cop comes to a scene where two men have been fighting at a bar, and both men claim self-defense. And the cop instinctively believes both of them are lying. Why? Well, the reason that he believes that is that from past experience, he knows that lots of people think that they're justified in the violence in which they engage. And the fact of the matter was that there was probably an escalation process where one or the other party, and it alternates, it tends to escalate in alternating fashion, they could have gotten off the fight train before it got to the fight. And sometimes your ego takes over. Sometimes that reptilian part of your brain takes over, where you feel that fight or flight situation. And you probably should have chose flight. You probably should have got up and left.
Yeah, walking away.
There's
Good
a
answer.
Recent occurrence here, not too many days before the assassination, where a Philadelphia Phillies fan handed a ball to a woman who was very intent and upset. He took the ball out of his son's hand and gave it to the woman. And people called that cowardice. There were people said that wasn't very manly, but it was actually the best thing he could have done to model for his son how to handle a dispute. There was no reason to get yourself in trouble. And people get themselves in trouble a lot. And they get into fights and they do something, and then inadvertently they end up in prison, even though all they were doing was quote unquote defending themselves. And I'm just going to tell you it's true at that level, and it's true all the way up to the level we're talking about now, which is the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The second thing I want to put out there as a caveat is that my response was identical through two different events that have occurred since the summer began.
That's true. The Minnesota, what was the state senator?
State senator and a speaker of the House who was actually assassinated in that process, along with her husband.
Yeah.
So 4 people were shot at 2 different residences and 2 died as a result of what was called at the time political violence. We didn't know yet what had happened or why it happened. And so I immediately got on and we recorded an instant grace. We recorded that one in contrast to the one I did this past week with Charlie Kirk's case, where I went live.
Yeah.
And said much the same thing. You can go back and find these 2 grace. We'll put the links down in the show notes. You can go look and say, I treated these situations in the instant that they occurred identically. And my number one piece of advice was not to jump to conclusions.
Yep. Yep.
Third,
You just don't know until the news comes out on it, and the actual factual news comes out.
Third, many years ago when I joined the Libertarian Party, I had something of a spiritual experience, and that was that I signed a pledge that said I do not believe in or advocate the use of force to achieve my social or political goals.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I did that too, Jim.
Good.
And I thought that was just sort of like, well, this is what you do, right? But it's so crucial now.
Yeah, I wish that everybody would sign a pledge like
right?
that. It would have far-reaching implications. But this is the pledge that I signed, or the commitment that I made, and I took it seriously at the time that I signed it. I'm like, this is kind of unusual. You got to sign a statement like this to join the party,
right?
And that's why I did it. And there were reasons that they instituted, which we will not go into today. But I just want to say that it applies here. So words are not justification for violence, words alone. And the pledge I signed says that it's not a way for me to advance my political goals. Okay. So that's how we're coming at this today, as we discuss this. Okay. I want to start by playing a video that we have pulled aside. We could pull several clips just like this one, but this one, I thought he did a really good job of expressing his point. This is the late Charlie Kirk talking to somebody on a college campus.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend, because people like me are facing violence, assaults. The left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put it on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
So we're going to put some caveats and qualifications on in just a moment, but I want to say that overall, the balance of that statement, I adore. I think that is the way that we should be thinking about our differences. That when we stop talking, it's an opportunity for dehumanization, and dehumanization justifies the war or the violence that follows. And I don't know what was going through the mind of the person who pulled the trigger completely. We have a little bit of clue at this moment, but one of the things that definitely was going on is that other person was not, that Charlie Kirk was not humanized at that moment by that person.
Yeah,
he was dehumanized.
He was dehumanized. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to pull the trigger.
And so, I don't know, how does that hit you?
Well, it does. No doubt, Charlie Kirk is a brave man, and I respect him. He's got a difficult job, but he volunteered for that job. And that job of keeping people talking to one another, you and I have both watched a speech by someone we both admire who basically is advocating the same thing. It's like, we need to continue this conversation. When things go off the rails is when we stop talking to each other as human beings.
In an interview on the Gary Nolan show the morning after the assassination, I talked about Daryl Davis, whose basic job or view of things is that, okay, these people hate me and they even want me dead. And he's even been through physical assault, but he still believed it was his duty. And as a result, he's gotten dozens, scores of people to leave neo-Nazi groups, the Klan, and other, white supremacy organizations. And he's got 26 Klan robes hanging in his closet and tons of paraphernalia that they've given him. They were going to throw away or burn. And he said, can I have it? These are trophies of the success that he's had through a lifetime now of using music to build a bridge, and then beginning to enter difficult conversations with people about this. He is a model. This is silencing, this saying that we have to punch people in the face we disagree with, has led to a moment. And even, we'll get into how some of the people are handling this now, but even the lack of empathy for his family and for this situation. this coercioning is very, very dangerous to all of us. So I had the experience. The last time I recall actually receiving a death threat was right before the Iraq War. I've had some people suggest to me that they'd like to kick my butt, but I haven't had anybody actually threaten to kill me since then. And we didn't take it super seriously because people who threaten before they deliver are probably just trying to get you to shut up. They're wanting to see if they can scare you into silence.
Oh, I see. Right.
They're mouth artists, as I would call them. The real people won't tell you what they're going to do. They'll just do it. But we had a loaded gun that we brought into the office and had sitting there, and I knew where it was. And at the time, I was not versed or carrying, but we knew where it was. And we responded publicly to it and said, come visit us and you'll find out we're not pinko communists, because that was the other part of it, is that we were pinko communists. And I said, come visit us and you'll find out the hard way. I want to go a little further with Charlie and how he handled things here, because there's a couple things. His star has been rising even over this summer.
Right. Yeah. Just very quickly, you said.
Very quickly. Like, he already was a big deal on the right, but South Park made him a character. They turned Cartman into Charlie. And Charlie's response to this was to change his profile picture temporarily to the version of Cartman they made with his hairdo on Cartman's head. Because he has kind of, when he mashed his hair down, he had kind of this weird do that that would result. So they put that hairdo on Cartman's head and put him out there as a character. And he adopted the profile and he sent out the link and he said, go watch it. He had a total sense of humor about the fact that they were riding him pretty good and hard. And I admire that.
Yeah.
And then
me too.
You and I had a conversation that other people wouldn't be aware of outside of the show, because we didn't act on it. There was a moment earlier this year when Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who's clearly running for president, said, you know what I should do to get that process started? I should start a podcast. What a typical white man thing to do. Anyway, he goes and he starts a podcast. I say that completely self-aware. He goes and starts a podcast. And who is the very first guest he has on his show?
Well, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. And Newsom took a ton of guff for it. There were a lot of people. Yeah. Well, you're in California. What was it like?
You can watch the interview. Charlie's taken him apart, and somebody needs to, because Governor Newsom has a few things that aren't quite, all put together there, and they're not hard to find. So I love the way that Newsom handled that with equanimity. He kind of gave it back to Charlie a little bit, but it was cordial. It was honest.
It was cordial. It was cordial and honest. It was both of those things.
Yeah.
What I noticed was that Charlie, in criticizing him, was basically saying, hey, you want to know how you can beat us? You want to know how to get your mojo back? Here's things that you should do.
He was telling him what the Democrat Party needs to do to get back in the game. And I don't know if that fell on deaf ears or not, but he was speaking to the right audience.
Yeah. And so both of these men did something extraordinary in that moment. They were agreeing to talk.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like both of them are going to go off and do things I don't want them to do. Let me be clear. Both of them are going to go do what they shouldn't do in a lot of ways. But they talked. They talked. And they were honest in their conversation, and they were polite and civil. I actually thought Gavin was kind. I will go so far as to say Gavin was kind. I thought that Gavin was very complimentary of Charlie.
He surprised me because the way the media treats him is totally different than how he shows up in that podcast.
Yeah, I've seen him behave differently in other situations. There's no doubt about it. So, we've talked again and again and again about this notion of having lemonade. We've been doing it since one of the very first podcasts. It's in the single digits. I don't even remember what one it started, but I know it's all the way back then.
You can see the glasses, right? You can't see it. They do have video, but the lemonade glasses are there when this is happening with Newsom and Charlie.
Yeah,
Kirk, right?
and so, but this is what's got to go on all over the place. So I was just in a meeting before we came on this show, And I mentioned something that I had observed that I thought was rather odd in his manner, because it happens even in the final seconds before the shots fired. Charlie would pick up the microphone and answer, and then he would set it back down again. And it's a seemingly insignificant thing, but it's actually pretty big, because someone's talking, and what it means is when the mic's down, it means I'm listening. And he would pick it up when he needed to, and that would be a signal I'm going to start talking again. And I imagine that added emphasis to the fact that it was time for him to jump in. But it also meant I'm listening when he set it down. And I'm going to take all comers. And I have a lot of respect for that. It isn't easy. It isn't easy to go in and take all comers on all topics at all times.
Oh, especially if you're like on a college campus with all kinds of...
Yes. And he got a lot of things wrong along the way. And he started doing this when he was 18. And I want to tell you something. When I'm 18, I think I know everything, and everybody else is dumb. And almost everybody can relate to what I'm about to say. I found out somewhere in my 20s, I didn't know quite as much as I thought. And by my 30s, I found out that I really wasn't all that smart. My parents were a lot smarter than I realized. Right? But at 18, you don't have it all together. So there's this maturity process that this guy went through right in front of everybody. And he was a different guy in the last couple of years doing this than he was when he first started. He was also better on some issues back then and worse on other issues later as this process evolved. But he changed over time. And judging a guy who is 20 and 21 for some of the things he said, the number of sessions that he did like this, the number of stuff he put on social media, the combination of youth in that mix, it's inevitable he's going to say some things that, oh my gosh, he shouldn't have said that. And even he probably would have admitted to that.
Well, he's keeping him, unlike a lot of people, he's keeping the whole thing there. You know, he's not pulling stuff down that he's ashamed of.
No.
We get to watch the whole process beginning to end, start to finish, and the evolution of his thinking along the way. And that's really, really instructive about now.
Yes. But I'm not trying to say everybody should be in reverence to him right now.
No. I mean, we can disagree with the thing, but at least the whole thing of his, we can see the whole thing. He's not hiding anything.
He was advocating for more government.
He was advocating for more government.
He was advocating
we have
for
our disagreement
power
with
over
him.
people.
Yes.
There were people that felt threatened by what he said. The question that he was dealing with at that very moment had to do with a Republican proposal. At the very moment of the shot, some Republicans have said out loud that trans represents a unique threat. Maybe they shouldn't have guns. And he was getting a question about that very topic at the moment that it happened. I wish I could have heard his entire answer. We don't get that.
Yeah.
Because it was interrupted. And even in this video clip that we just played just now, he's wearing an ICE hat.
Yeah, we got to talk about ICE.
Well, we've done it in the Karen Bass episode, which we'll put down in the show notes. We'll put a link down there. We did it in the libertarian purity test episode, and we'll say more about that in the future. I want to focus more on the fact that he advocated for things that were bad.
Yes. And
he advocated for things that would sooner or later someone's going to feel their ox is gored.
Yeah.
Now I want to be clear. I said at the top, in case you were deaf or you've forgotten, that words don't justify violence. So what he's saying or what he's advocating doesn't mean that it's justifiable to shoot him. But I understand where it comes from. Not justified, but you can kind of recognize. So we have to do a little breakdown today about why we're in the situation that we're in right now. And I want to start off with this point. Long before the arrest happened, I'm sitting here, we just a few hours ago learned who the suspect was. But long before the arrest happened, nearly everyone was steering it towards politics, and everyone had a take, and none of those takes would have surprised you because they matched previous values or predispositions. If someone was was a fan of Charlie or inclined to more like him than dislike him, then they thought that people on the political left must be responsible. And if they were on the political left, they were aware of a rather arcane but still real feud that was going on to the right of Charlie, that there was actually a character out there who has been attacking him for years and basically made his bones doing it, and that there was a movement that is pretty extreme out there that could have been this. And then there was a host of other theories, and they matched. They're just not surprising in any case that people would grab them. But here's the problem. And this is what I said in the instant grace that we put out about both Minnesota and Charlie Kirk. And that is, you have to have patience. The truth will come out over time. I'm worried that sometimes the government covers things up. I'm worried that sometimes they don't tell us the whole truth. But on balance, most of the time, more truth shows up later, and it tends to contradict the first takes that everybody seems to have.
Yeah, the knee-jerk stuff.
Yes,
it doesn't serve us.
So now we know that there seems to be some political thought on the part of the shooter, but we don't actually know the shape of it. We're in the hours right now where people are breaking down the symbolism of things that were put on the bullet casings, and they're trying to find out more from his social media history because it didn't quite get down fast enough, apparently. So there will be more things to learn over time. And in that effort, I want to be unequivocal. There is zero equivocation in what I'm about to say. I am opposed to any censorship in this matter and any overreaction. So by censorship, I mean there were people already saying it's horrible that that the shooting is being played on social media. And by the time I saw that statement being made, I'd already seen it from 3 angles.
Did you know that you were seeing some fake stuff, or was it all?
No, it took time to figure out that one of them was fake. And I think this is all fine. We will learn how to do this by going through it. We will learn how to spot fakes together. We will learn how to crowdsource and go to truth together. We will do that together, and we have to exercise those muscles. We are in a brave new world with this AI stuff.
Yep. I agree with you.
There's no shortcuts here. And any attempt to try to create legislation that fixes the problem is invariably going to make us weaker and less effective at being able to see the truth for ourselves and understand it. Any idiots outside notwithstanding. Now, the ability to see this, part of what I'm motivated about is that I have taken interest in one other particular assassination in U.S. history. We've done programs about it. I am working on another one right now because another significant event happened in that situation. Actually, a few different things, but one in particular that's very important from my perspective, or something I was familiar with. And I know that the government lied a lot in that setting. I'm not mentioning the name of that case. Everybody can infer it. We'll get a label on this show if I do it, and I don't want that label on this particular episode. There was censorship that occurred in that case. There was actual lying that occurred in that case. I don't want the government hiding facts. I don't want the government playing any role in what facts I can and cannot have. I want to make those decisions for myself. I want you to be able to make those decisions for yourself. So I was in a conversation socially with 3 other people. We talk about a lot of things back and forth throughout the week. One of them happens to be the person who does the graphics for our show. And when I asked the 3 people in that thread, listen, I've seen something. It's interesting, but it's also kind of gory. And I don't want to offend you. I'm not going to share this with you. And if you tell me you don't want it. So I'm kind of asking, can I share it with you? And I'll be fine if you say no. And 2 of the 3 chose to say no. And I respected that. Now, one of them admitted, he said, it's probably going to end up stumbling through my timeline at some point somehow. But he said, I'd prefer not to see it. And I honored and respected that. And I think that's exactly how everyone should interact with one another. But the idea that you can't get at it, you can't see it, it's too much for your delicate eyes. Oh, and this is tragic for the family. That nobody should be able to see this. They shouldn't risk that they would stumble across and see this. It's just not right. It's just not right.
Censorship is hard too these days.
It means that we don't get to the truth.
Yeah.
And the crowd overall tends to break up a lot of things and figure stuff out. It's amazing how many little things you need to know and understand to know the truth of an event. Any event. It's bottomless. And so when we've got all this video footage, which we are now blessed to have because it's harder to hide things because of it. When we have that video, then we should have access to it. I'm also the overreaction to this. I'm opposed to that too. There are people who are really, really angry or really, really crying and wounded, and I am full of empathy, and it jolted me. I was really struck on Wednesday by it, and I couldn't get it out of my head for hours. In fact, really the rest of the day. And I had seen the video, and two of those things, at least two of those things, were completely accurate, and it shook me. But I still have a life to live, and I don't want to see laws or regulations coming out of the fact that people were hurt or horrified or bothered by this event. I wouldn't want it if it went the other direction from the other party. Like across the board, I don't want people starting to take actions out of emotion or say things out of emotion that are just not justified.
This show is brought to you by the Zero Aggression Project. Zap newsletter subscribers get alerts when each episode is released. The Zap website is also the pathway by which you can contact us by email and support the show. This program operates thanks to tax-deductible Zap contributions, and we appreciate your support. So, zap the state, and have a nice day.
Now, most people are looking for meta-narratives in this case. And I think almost everybody's meta-narratives are bad. And I'll get into some of why I think that's the case. We're going to get into a couple examples of this, but here's my meta-narrative. George Washington was alleged to have said, there's not really any evidence he actually said this, but it's a very on-point statement. Government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force, like fire, a troublesome servant and a fearful master. Now, whether or not George Washington said it, it's a true statement.
Yeah, the sentiment has been borne out by history. So,
yes. When you decide that a matter is a government matter, you are deciding that it needs to be imposed. The government has one tool in its kit. It's a hammer. And what it's going to do is start pounding everything that it needs to pound in order to get it to comply and be in the right place. Now, we don't normally see this because most of us, most of the time, recognize what a threat looks like, and we comply. And it's possible that the threat that's being imposed is one we happen to agree with.
Oh, sure. We voted for it, don't you know?
It's not something we would do. So far too much of this passes as voluntary. Now, other people have challenged my memory of late of this. I need to go dig this information up. But as recently as the 1990s, and it may have even been later than that, you used to get your tax forms in a big booklet that would come to your house. And the forms were in there and the instructions were in there, and that's how you did your taxes. We do them way differently today, but that's how you did them back in the old days. And in there, when you would open up, and they would tell you about the wonderful state of affairs that you were now in, that you got to do your patriotic duty. This was the base of civilization, after all. You were paying your tax, and this is the key thing, they would suggest that it was voluntary. What they meant by it is you don't seem to put up much fuss when we send this book. You tend to fill it out on your own. In fact, you skip a nice spring afternoon when you could be out with your kids, doing something, pruning the trees, whatever it is on a spring day. You instead give up that time and sit down and fill out these forms. They're torturous. They're complicated. You're worried that you're going to get something wrong, but you still do it anyway. You must want to do that. That's what was implied. Okay. We don't have to send people to your door and turn you upside down and shake you out by your ankles. We don't have to go through and maraud your house to get what we need. You just hand it to us. That must be voluntary, right? But we all know it's not. We all know that government's force. We recognize that. So when we start playing politics, and this gets us back to Charlie, it's a battle to decide where the violence is going to be directed. And Charlie and all of his friends, I've been watching videos almost constantly since then. Many people who knew him, they're all advocates of politics. Like, Charlie was cheerful about politics. Charlie believed in politics. Charlie was engaged in politics. Charlie was a young man that was energized by politics. Charlie was out there debating politics. Like, somehow this is virtuous, but it's the battle to decide where the violence is going to be directed. Who's going to live at the expense of who? Who gets the benefit or the crony benefits or the spoils of the system? Who gets special treatment and favors? Who gets this or that? Who is going to have their ox gored? Who's going to be told they cannot do the things that they want to do to pursue their own values, their own goals, their own ambitions, their own dreams? Who's going to be regulated out of existence? On and on it goes. Who's going to be prohibited from taking in the substance they want? And recently, who was going to be required to put a substance they didn't want into their body? Charlie was an advocate of politics. Now, he might not have wanted to advocate things that you thought were okay. Like, he might have been fine with doing certain things and not others. And you went, oh, Charlie's got the same values I've got. But that didn't mean that they were right.
We've said on this program that politics is war.
It is war by other means.
By other means. So Charlie is advocating here basically for war, and one could say he got what he had coming to him.
No, you can't go to that second leap. So here's the thing. Words cannot be violence. And me even sitting here saying, we're going to discontinue your programs. You can't go, well, I rely on those programs. I'm going to go over and shoot Jim so he didn't say that anymore. The reason this particularly hurts is that in our unique system of governance, you can say the wrong thing and you're not going to be punished for it. And you can advocate an idea. But every time someone advocates a wrong idea, they are inviting you to come and say the right idea.
Sure, to have the conversation, right?
Have the conversation.
Grab some lemonade. Let's find out where you stand on this stuff. Okay,
so Charlie's doing that, but he's advancing policies that harm, like ICE. Okay, that's the one I'm going to restrict myself to today because the one I understand the best. It's the one I know the most about, and I can confidently say, because there have been people who misquoted Charlie since he passed away, or quoted young Charlie making a mistake, right? But I'm saying now, Charlie invited Dave Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Come on and debate foreign policy. Charlie and Dave Smith don't see eye to eye on that issue. Okay. But he still invited him to be on a stage in front of 7,000 of his own people.
Yep.
And then put the video out for the world to see.
And Charlie recognizes the value of the argument, right? The
value of the argument.
Debate.
So Charlie's already way ahead of a lot of these other people. Now, what I would have hoped over time, if I had met Charlie, that maybe I could have had a conversation with Charlie and say, hey, you know what? Like, the policies that you're advocating for, you're making things worse.
Well, if the policies are enacted, but he does need to take a strong position in order to invite that debate to take place, in order to invite the argument. You and I both know someone who said, don't take this at my word, just argue it among yourselves until you make it your own.
So come out of that system and start speaking back to it. That's what I would have liked to have seen happen.
Yes, right. Yes.
Okay. Unplug from that. Don't pick a team. He was very clearly on a team.
Yeah.
And speak out against it. Say, this is not the right way to get things done. We can learn how to be good neighbors. We can learn how to voluntarily interact.
Well, that's our opportunity right now.
That's the opportunity right now. But it's not going to happen if we keep expanding government. It's not going to happen if we keep invoking government. It's not going to happen if we keep saying it's okay to point guns at you and pretend you're voluntarily complying when what you're doing so is under compulsion and coercion.
Right.
You know what the threat is. You understand that pain will come if you don't comply. And you understood it when you got that tax booklet. And they don't lie and tell people it's voluntary anymore. There's video. You can find it online. Maybe I should put this in the show links too. Of former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid telling Jan Helfeld that, of course, our income tax system is voluntary.
Go, Harry. We've always loved you, man.
Now, not everybody's handled this well. And there's been a lot made of this. MSNBC, however, did fire analyst Matthew Dowd for unacceptable comments about Charlie Kirk. So there's this thing where, the left doesn't get it. They're just completely irresponsible and out of control. And here's Matthew Dowd being terminated for saying something irresponsible. It was irresponsible, by the way. I don't know that he deserved to be fired for it, but it was irresponsible. It was cruel. I just think when I heard the story, because it was one of the very first things that came out, like immediately after this happened very quickly after the shooting itself. And I think of the phrase, be careful if you fight monsters that you don't become a monster.
Yeah, good point.
So if you think Charlie's a bad guy, the risk to your own character and soul is that you become much more like him. We've talked quite a bit. We're not going to get into it today. We've done entire episodes about Rene Girard. And one of the things that happens inside this imitation game that goes on is that one party starts to imitate the other. And over time, as they get closer to the object, they become rivals. And in that rivalry, they become more and more and more like each other.
Yeah.
They can't see it. Each of them will argue that they are justified. If both of them are even aware the rivalry exists. Sometimes one party doesn't know they're in rivalry, but the one that is behaving the worst, and they might both be behaving terribly, will say that they're justified for the following reasons. They will not see it. But outside, the people are stepping back looking at it who don't want to get in the middle of it. They're like, man, they're an awful lot alike.
Well, this describes where we are in American politics. We've got parties that look like they've flipped.
And they keep escalating.
Platforms. And they keep escalating.
They keep escalating. Just like the two men in a bar claiming self-defense.
Which is not going to end well. And libertarians are kind of offering a different way to stand back at that and look at it.
Yeah, so does Scripture. Romans 12:21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
There we go.
And somewhere, apparently, even Charlie said, forgive your enemies. It really irritates them. Now, we have seen empathy broken in cases because we have social media. But I present to you as a law, as certain as gravity, that if you poll 1 billion people, you will find people who have ugly views. And you won't have any trouble finding some people who have ugly views. It's really a pretty easy exercise. And you could choose to make a mountain out of this. You could choose to pretend that this is representative of a sample of something, even if it's microscopically small percentage-wise. But in the case where people did celebrate, I just want to be blunt, that's I can't even pronounce the word all of a sudden. Psychopathy. It's a psychopathic response. It's sick. It's not emotionally, morally adjusted properly. It's unwell. I want to go one step further, though, and suggest to all the people who've tried to pretend like these individual case studies of people behaving in a pathological fashion. I can't say the word. What a professional I am. Behaving in this fashion. Sociopathic would be another similar term. So I'll use that one because I can say that one easier. I'm the host. I get to do that. Sociopathic terms also is an indicator of not intent or principle or philosophy or morality. It's a sign of incoherence.
Yeah, it's giving away your power.
These people are not connecting ideas in some powerful new way that is going to liberate humanity. They fundamentally don't understand humanity at that moment. And if you were to talk to them and bore down into their beliefs, 90% of the time, maybe 100, I don't know, you're going to find out that they're incoherent. They can't string thoughts together and they would contradict themselves and the cognitive dissonance would well up and they'd get mad at you too and wish you dead. Their humanity would disappear and that little part in their amygdala would go off. I don't like, and I just want to say this, the people who in the last few days since Charlie was assassinated, going out and saying, well, the left this and the left that and this, that, and the other. Like, you don't know squat. You're saying that these people who are cheering this have a coherent worldview. You've given them more credit than they deserve, and you're disempowering yourself in the process because you're not dealing in reality at that moment.
So on that note, how do you think, that's probably not a fair question. What's your response? Let's go that way. What's your response to the order to lower all the flags in Charlie's memory?
Gosh, this whole lowering of the flags thing, a lot of times when I'm driving and I notice, because there's a school I pass on the way home from the class that I teach, and I'll notice the flag down. That's when I'll notice it. And I don't know why it's down most of the time.
Right. I don't either. I have to call or find out, or
I don't know quite what it does. I know that some people, it seems to mean an awful lot to them. I just want to say, when I die, please don't bother. Okay. Please don't. I'm the guy that would say I want to leave symbols to the symbol-minded. It doesn't mean a lot to me. Okay. It's not going to make it's not going to pay my family's bills. It's not going to get me to heaven. Like, I don't understand these kinds of things. I don't. And I'm not trying to be cold. I just don't. We do so many things that make it easy, let us off the hook, that somehow or other we did something.
Oh yeah. Like we showed some compassion.
Yeah. If you really were broken up by what happened to this family, there's ways you can help. If you really were broken up by what might happen to his organization, there's ways you can help. If you really were broken up about what's going on here, go stand somewhere and do what he did. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Try it yourself.
All of that stuff means a whole lot more than flags at half-mast. I'm sorry. And don't get me
thanks for that. That's what I wanted to put on record.
Don't bother. The whole idolatry thing just doesn't work for me. I'm not interested. I'm saying this out loud. Okay. You can, my kids can clip this. You can share this with my kids the moment I kick the bucket. I don't want any of this stuff. I don't like it. Another point about the people and how they're handling things badly. So people who will send you a death threat, I kind of alluded to this earlier, they are performative. They're not normally actual threats. But they do seem to act as some kind of like emotional kindling for disturbed others who don't necessarily post.
Yeah.
And I'm worried about this on two levels. One of which I may get into at the very end of the show here. But the level that jumps out at me immediately is that we could lose our liberties here. Every time a crisis of some kind comes up, there's some politician that sits there as an opportunist saying, we can't let this go to waste. We have a new power we can grab, and we can do this and we can do that, and we can justify it because look what just happened. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went right to microphones and said, Charlie was for gun rights and he got taken out by a gun. We have to have gun control. No, you're out. There's other people saying there's not enough security in these places. We have more security. Oh, great. So this is how we want to live our lives now? Like, you want to go to a free concert and you want to get patted down before you get there? How has the TSA worked out for us? Folks, the TSA has not stopped, not a single one in nearly 25 years now, has not stopped a single terrorist event on an airline. Not one. They've stolen a lot of stuff along the way. They've touched us in inappropriate places. It's a huge inconvenience that we all suffer for God knows what reason. They just recently allowed us to keep our shoes on. None of this should have happened, and it hasn't made us any safer. Your safety and security was in you. And on 9/11, they figured it out on the same day. The advice going in on September 10th, 2001 was if a plane got hijacked, cooperate. It was your best chance to live. By the time the third plane had hit a building, the people on the fourth plane knew full well that advice was no longer operable, and they took matters into their own hands. And subsequently, when someone showed up on a plane with some kind of bomb in their shoes, it was the passengers on the plane, not the TSA, that stopped them. So maybe we ought to take a lesson in all of this, that our security belongs to us. It's what first, your security is found in the fact that no one else wants to harm you. And second, if you want to make sure that you're secure from people who do want to harm you, that is your responsibility first. There's a saying, it's been around for a long time, that when seconds count, police are minutes away. So I don't know. If you have a lesson you want to learn that you want to provide more security, well, more people voluntarily need to be on the lookout for certain things. They need to be operationally aware. And maybe even some volunteers in the events need to be positioned at some points where they're making sure that they can see what happens. And they maybe even have a pair of binoculars and a tiny bit of training, probably take all of 10, 15 minutes for what they should be looking for. And we'd all be safer and we'd all be better off and we could respond faster and maybe even prevent things from happening. But there is no perfect solution. And if you're going to recommend the government, I'm going to tell you it's the wrong one. It's the wrong one.
Yeah, this is not a government opportunity right here.
Yep. So Marjorie Taylor Greene came out and she wanted to ban certain things. She was hoping platforms would take certain videos down. You know, after what we've all been through, she wants people making these decisions on the things she cares about, but not on the things she doesn't want them to do. And this is all the special pleading that everybody's got going on in this system, and a hard stop because the public recording, the video was helpful. It is going to be helpful, and it will be helpful. So one of the things that you can take to provide for your own defense is a camera. It is a tool. Most people don't think about this. It is a tool of self-defense. Let me make a novel proposal here. People have talked about a Second Amendment right to bear arms. I want a Second Amendment right to bear a camera in all situations and circumstances. I'm in a setting and someone's doing something wrong, might even be a law enforcement official. Oh, no, wait a minute. Especially in the case of a law enforcement official. But I want the ability to film. I want that treated like a fundamental right. I want to say one more thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene's comment. The 10th Amendment Center put out a tweet that I want to read. They said the largest government in the history of the world loves it when people fight among themselves. The more power they have, the more power the more that people will fight to control it. The more the people fight over it, the more power government will get. It's a never-ending cycle that George Washington warned would end in permanent despotism. And this is precisely what I don't want to see happen. It's precisely what I don't want to see happen here. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, please don't call for censorship anymore. You didn't like it during the worldwide sickness. Don't advocate for it now. So apparently one of the shell casings was labeled with the phrase, "Hey, fascist, catch." We now have understanding that if this person had some political thoughts going through his head, family members seem to recognize that this could have been him. And just like in the case of the Unabomber, it was a family member ultimately who led to this young man being turned in. I don't know yet whether he's guilty. That's what courts are for. The evidence that's been marshaled, even at this early hour, is already fairly compelling. But, time will tell. You should be patient and let the process play it out. That's what it's there for. So this begins to bring up another question, which is whether or not social media is a problem. The Utah governor actually said, quote, "Social media is a cancer, log off," end quote. I don't like blaming inanimate objects. I don't like abstractions. The person responsible for the behavior that day was the person who pulled the trigger. Full stop. You're not responsible. The Democrats are not responsible. The left-wing media is not responsible. The right-wing media is not responsible. He chose to pull the trigger with full intent. Now, whether he's mentally imbalanced, we don't yet know. Whether or not he had a coherent ideological plan and this really was a political shooting, we still don't fully know. We will learn that stuff over time, hopefully. But it's not society that shot Charlie. Our society doesn't, in fact, our society doesn't teach our young people how to even talk about government. Let's be blunt about this. Part of the reason I have to do a show like this is that hardly anybody knows how to actually talk about government. Hardly anybody recognizes its true reality.
Is that what the governor's talking about with logging off social media?
No, he's blaming an inanimate object and saying it's dangerous, and the best thing you could possibly do is turn it off. It's the same thing that people do when they're blaming guns.
I was going for the reality factor there, because social media, not reality.
No, it's not reality. And it's not terrible advice to turn it off, but it's not to blame for this situation.
Right. Definitely not to blame.
I wouldn't have called it a cancer. Think of all the things that you've been able to do and the people you've been able to meet because of it. It's discounting a whole lot of good to say to focus only on the bad. Is the bad there? Gosh, it's there with everything.
Yeah.
You know, chocolate bars are really great. They're incredibly delicious. Make an entire diet out of chocolate bars and see what happens to you. I'm not going to go saying, chocolate bars are cancer just because some people misuse the tool. Every tool gets misused. And it happens that many of the people that are in his audience and part of his constituency think guns are a great, virtuous, good thing. They are. They have a lot of good uses. Some people misuse them, and people on the other side say, we got to ban that. Stop banning the things. Just stop. Full stop. But maybe educate people on how to use stuff more responsibly. Sure, I'm for that. But I'm a little bit scared when the governor says social media is a cancer. Log off. I don't want the governor saying that. Say it as a private citizen, but don't say it as the governor. And here's another one. Why is society so crazy? Add that to the list. Why is society? Oh, people are crazy these days. What's becoming of the world, people will say.
I've said it.
You know, the group that bothers me the most when these kinds of utterances come out are my fellow believers. There's a line that goes like this. I read the end of the book and we win. The lion lays down with the lamb. Right? If you need to figure out for yourself how to stay grounded in the midst of all of this. That's your job. Now, I personally stay grounded because I do believe that in the end, it works out. God's plan manifests and all things work together for good to them who are called to according to his purpose. That's how it works. Okay. So I see kind of a mega picture. People have asked me, and it was pointed out to me earlier today that I was a little depressed during the worldwide sickness. There were some moments that it felt incredibly dark to me. But overall, I've shown up every day of my career believing that it was the right thing to do, that I was to do the work and leave the results to God. I was not God. I'm not responsible. I don't have a God complex. I don't believe that I know how to run your life. I don't believe I know what's best for you. I don't believe I should be making those decisions, especially by force. I recognize that if I tell you, for example, even something simple like buy a stock or sell a stock, that I could be giving you bad advice. I don't give people advice when they get sick. I don't tell them how to treat their cancer or whatever else. Now, if you ask me my opinion, it's a different matter altogether. As you could tell, I have opinions, and I'm more than willing. The things I talk about the most are the things I've spent my whole life studying. And I've done homework before I show up to do it. But even then, I'm cautioning and saying, I could be wrong. Come back and tell me what I'm missing. But there's one thing I'm not wrong about. And that is the state is violence. And it's not the solution to the situation in which we find ourselves. Not wrong about that. So I am going to personally follow the advice I shared after the Minnesota event and after the Charlie Kirk event. And the next time something like this happens, because it will, I'll come out and share the same advice all over again. Be patient, pray, do something good, and wait. Just wait. Oh, and don't blame inanimate objects. Don't appeal to the state. Those are the things I'm going to keep saying again and again and again. And last note, Charlie sat there in the quad and he took the questions as they came. That is a sacred space to a large degree. And whether you agreed with Charlie or disagreed, and I disagreed with him on quite a bit, whether you disagreed or agreed, that's a model we want to see more of, not less of. We want people to talk. We want people who disagree to humanize and talk to each other. We want them to get together and have lemonade on the porch, precisely because they disagree. And then we can have the Gracearchy we are all hoping for.